Hi, welcome to Danny After Dark. If you're new here, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Tonight, we'll be featuring the case of Rachel Wade. So let's go ahead and dive on in. Rachel Wade, she was born February 27th, 1990. She grew up in Pinellas Park, Florida. When Rachel was just 20 years old, she became involved in a romantic rivalry with 18-year-old Sarah Ludemann. Well, who's Sarah Ludemann? Sarah also grew up in Pinellas Park, Florida. Sarah was considered to be a late bloomer when it came to boys. At age 17, Sarah walked into a Chick-fil-A restaurant where a gentleman named Joshua Camacho was working. It is said of this meeting, quote, he poked his head out of the back because he was in the back and he just kind of winked at her, end quote. Sarah's friend Amber, who was with her at this time, stated, Sarah said, quote, just want to know him, end quote. The rivalry between Rachel and Sarah began after they started seeing the same guy, Joshua Camacho. It didn't take long before Rachel and Sarah found out about each other. Joshua seemed to enjoy the two women fighting for his affection. In fact, he even encouraged them to battle each other for him. Joshua stated in court that he considered both women, quote, friends with benefits, end quote, and wasn't seeing either one of them exclusively at the time. The two women, really only teenagers at the time, had fought for months via voicemails, text messages, and MySpace postings over their relationship with Joshua. Rachel left insulting voicemails for Sarah. They even began to harass each other. Sarah would show up at Applebee's, where Rachel worked, in order to taunt her. During one incident, Sarah actually went to the police. She stated Rachel was repeatedly calling her cell phone, leaving her threatening voicemails. Well, on the evening of April 14th, 2009, authorities say that Rachel was alone in her apartment waiting for Joshua. Well, Joshua was with Sarah watching movies. Well, Rachel went outside to walk her dog. She heard a car honk at her and stated it was Sarah yelling, quote, stay away from my man, end quote. Rachel said she was scared and she decided to call an old boyfriend named Javier. Well, Javier told her, come over to my house. So she got her purse, opened up a kitchen drawer, and pulled out a steak knife before she went over to Javier's house. At 11 p.m., Rachel approached Joshua's house. He and Sarah were still inside together, playing video games at this point. Rachel sent Joshua a text message saying, quote, now I know where you're not talking to me because you got her, end quote. Joshua replied, quote, that's right. I don't like you no more. Why don't you go home, end quote. Rachel responded, quote, no. I'll wait for her to go home, end quote. Just before midnight, Joshua's sister asked Sarah for a ride to McDonald's. On the way there, Sarah saw a friend at a stop sign who told her Rachel's still at Javier's house. So Sarah decided to go confront her. When Sarah arrived at Javier's house, she saw Rachel outside, speaking with Javier and their friend named Dustin Grimes. Rachel testified that Sarah slammed on her brakes, nearly hitting her, and storming out of the car with her fists flailing everywhere. However, authorities and witnesses who were there say Sarah didn't even get a chance to leave the van. It was Rachel who approached the van and attacked Sarah. Within a matter of seconds, Rachel grabbed the kitchen knife that she got, approached the driver's side of the minivan, and attacked Sarah in between where the driver's open door is in the minivan. Dustin, who was there, stated Well, the other women also jumped out of the minivan at the same time and approached Rachel. Rachel told the police of the incident, quote, "I didn't think they would attack me if they saw I had a knife," end quote. She testified that she swung the knife after being hit 3 times, but wasn't aware she actually stabbed Sarah until one of Sarah's friends told her so. Quote, "I didn't know where she was or where she was stabbed or how severe it was. I was just scared," end quote. Sarah, who was stabbed, began clutching her chest, calling to Joshua saying what happened. Joshua ran to Sarah's home to tell her father. They both drove to the scene. Immediately after the stabbing, witnesses say Rachel threw the knife she used over to a neighbor's house. In court, Rachel admitted she threw the knife into a neighbor's yard because, quote, "I didn't know what happened and I didn't want anybody else to get hold of it. I didn't want anything to be done to anybody or anybody else get hurt that night," end quote. Sarah, who sustained horrible, horrible injuries, was pronounced dead. April 15th, 2009 at 2:29 a.m., she was stabbed twice in the chest. Doctors struggled to save Sarah, but her wound was too massive. When police arrived and began questioning Rachel immediately and the other witnesses, Rachel began to cry when they told her Sarah had died. Hours later, Rachel was arrested and charged with murder in the 2nd degree. She was booked in the Pinellas County Jail on a $500,000 bond. She stayed there through the conclusion of her trial. The trial began on July 20th, 2010 with jury selection. Testimony began the following day. Prosecutors brought up the history between the two in order to show that Rachel intended to kill her rival over Joshua Camacho. The defense argued self-defense under the stand your ground law that Florida encompasses. Rachel's attorney stated that Sarah was very upset and that Rachel was fearful because Sarah was bigger and her friends outnumbered her. Rachel was 5'4" and 110 pounds, and Sarah was 5'9", 166 pounds. So there's quite a bit of difference between the two women. The defense brought up the Applebee's incident in which Sarah and her friends knocked Rachel's tray over and sang "Girl Fight" during karaoke and taunted her. He also stated that the two girls fought before the stabbing, pulling each other's hair. The witnesses who testified for the prosecution were Joshua, his sister, Dustin. Javier's, Rachel's ex, testified for the defense. Javier stated that the two fought, but admitted he did not see much of the actual incident. Joshua's sister and Dustin testified that Rachel was the one that approached the vehicle and started stabbing Sarah. The jury heard the voicemails for themselves, which Sarah had saved on her phone 8 months prior. The voicemails had Rachel stating she was going to kill her. In an August 29th, 2008 voicemail, Rachel can be heard saying, quote, "I'm guaranteeing you I'm going to fucking murder you." In another one, she tells Sarah, "You are a fucking fat bitch. I'm going to fucking kill you. I swear on my life," end quote. Rachel said in a voicemail left for Sarah, quote, "Josh may have played me, but bitch, I'm going to play your ass out too, so watch out," end quote. Well, Rachel testified that Sarah also had left her similar threatening messages, but she deleted them from her phone, so she didn't have them anymore. This ultimately sealed her fate, as the jury took only 2.5 hours, and they found Rachel Wade guilty of murder in the 2nd degree. On September 3rd, 2010, Rachel was sentenced to 27 years in state prison. The judge in the case stated he believed Rachel intended to kill Sarah Ludemann. And that is the case of Rachel Wade. Thank you for joining me for another case of Danny After Dark. Again, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss a notification or a new episode. Do you have a question about the case? Leave a comment down below. Do you have an idea for a case that you might like me to cover in a future episode? Leave it down below in the comments. You may see me cover it down the road. Until next time, remember, we don't live in darkness. Darkness lives in us.